Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Daniela and today I have another charity shop book haul for you. We're going to start off with some horror, followed by my first ever poetry, a little bit of fiction, I think some non-fiction, and then a bunch of fantasy books. First up we have Stephen King, and I picked up The Eyes of the Dragon. It says, "The king is dead, murdered by a strange and horrible poison. The land of Delane is mourning, apart from the unscrupulous, greedy, plotting magician Flag. Soon the king's oldest son Peter is imprisoned at the top of a high tower, the Needle, for his father's murder, while his young brother Thomas inherits the throne. Only Peter knows the truth of his own innocence, and the truth of the evil that is Flag. And only Peter can save Delane from the horror Flag has in store." So, evil magician murders king, frames son for it. Presumably we're going to be following Peter as he tries to stop the evil magician. I did not realise that Stephen King had written fantasy prior to the new one that he did recently. There's no price tags on these and I cannot remember what I paid for them. But the next book I picked up is Misery, a cult classic. I have seen the film for this and there's no way I'm going to be able to read this without picturing Kathy Bates because she is amazing. If you've seen the film and you've read this, please let me know. Like, is it worth reading this? Is the film just iconic and I just shouldn't bother? Are there any differences? I'd love to know. If you don't know, this is a horror book about an author that is in a car accident and is saved by one of his biggest fans. The only problem is she's a little bit unhinged and she kind of locks him up in her house and tries to force him to rewrite the ending to a book that she didn't like. I could be slightly off on that, but the general gist is along those lines. And finally, after potentially 2 years of searching, we found a copy of Pet Sematary secondhand. And it's not a bad one. I quite like this cover with the cat on. From what I've heard, this is one of Stephen King's most popular books, and this is one of the best books he's written. It heavily features topics of grief, and apparently it's very well written. I'd say out of all the Stephen King books, this is the one I'm most looking forward to reading. Moving on, we have some poetry books. I saw all three of these in one of my favourite charity shops, and whilst on the more pricey side when it comes to secondhand book shopping, I am very excited about these. So these each cost £2.99. They're all by the same author, but it is one that I recognise the name of, but I had a little flick through them. It seems to be quite modern poetry, so I feel like this would be a good place to start for someone who doesn't really read any poetry. The first one is Milk and Honey by Rupi Kaur. I also got The Sun and Her Flowers and Homebody. Let's just open this up at a random page and read one of them. "I want to be snapped, cracked, hammered into. I want to open where I am closed. Find the secret door. Let me out of me. I want something to hold me by the neck, split me down the middle, and make me feel alive again. I don't want to be numb anymore." Whoa! I feel like these are going to be good. Like I said, I did have a quick peek. Ooh. Wait, somebody has earmarked these. Let's read one that's been earmarked by a previous reader. "I measure my self-worth by how productive I've been. But no matter how hard I work, I still feel inadequate." Yep, that basically summarizes how I feel. "I fear that my best years are behind me, and nothing beyond this point will add up." These books are gonna get to me. Like, just read my feelings on paper. Next up, I think these are both non-fiction. Don't quote me on that. I picked up a copy of Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. I picked this up because it is a book that Alison Pages has raved about. Andy actually found this on the shelves. I could have missed it if he had not spotted it, so I'm very, very grateful for that. We paid £1.99 for this, and I don't actually know what this is about. Although Alison Pages has talked about this book a lot and very positively, I don't feel like she's ever explained what it's actually about. It'll just be a case of diving in and finding out for ourselves. But the front does say Indigenous wisdom, scientific knowledge, and the teachings of plants. Oh, okay, I don't think this is non-fiction. It says based on a true story. And it is a translated book, and it's called It's Me, Anna. It's by L.B. Lotter, and it's translated by Marianne Tam. I paid £2.99 for this. I think the synopsis is on the first page of this book, because it's not on the back. It says, "The road stretches out ahead of me, dark and endless, like my life. No, like it used to be. Before the sun comes up, I'll look him in the eye and I'll make him pay. I am on my way to get revenge, to take my life back, not to ask or to beg, but to take what's mine by right. That's the way it'll be. I'm gonna butcher this, but it's during her trip to Bloemfontein late one night that Anna remembers what her childhood was like, why she used to call herself Silent Anna, how she couldn't tell anyone what her stepdad did to her. Not her mom, not her best friend, Helena, not even her own father. It's only now, years later, that Anna has the courage to write about the terror she experienced as a child and how she has survived. This one sounds like it's going to be a hard-hitting one, but I always find myself drawn to translated books, and I'm just really interested to try this one. Now we're going to move on to the fantasy books that I managed to find, and the first one, probably the smuttiest of them all based on the cover, is The Darkest Night by Gina Showalter. This is part of the Lords of the Underworld series. It was £1.95. Next up I found Shadow's Edge by Brent Weeks. This is number 2 in the Night Angel trilogy. This trilogy wasn't on my radar at all until the Broken Binding announced a special edition of it. I wasn't interested in getting the special editions, but I figured I may as well try the series, and I found book number 2, so I'll be keeping my eye out for the other books in this series. Next I picked up Half Lost by Sally Green. I think this was the only one I was missing in this trilogy, so I'm very happy that I found this. And this one I paid £2.49. Next I found a copy of Ready Player One. I'm pretty sure I watched the film for this, but my memory's really bad, so even if I have watched it, I really can't remember what happens in it. All I have ever heard about Ready Player One is rave reviews for this book. I know everybody hates Ready Player 2, but Ready Player 1 apparently is a fantastic book. It can be read as a standalone. You don't have to read the second book. I've heard that this book as a standalone is wonderful. Oh, and apparently it is not fantasy, it's science fiction. Maybe this could be my next sci-fi after reading Project Hail Mary. Next, I found a physical copy of Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. I do already have the other one, which I have completely forgotten the name of, but these are more of a fairy tale style fantasy book, and I think this one's the more popular of the two, so I'm very interested to try this. We follow Miriam, who is the daughter of the village's moneylender. She decides to take it upon herself to carry out her father's job. And because of her success, rumours begin to circulate that she can turn silver into gold. The king hears of this and he sets her an impossible challenge, and if she fails, she dies. Yet if she triumphs, a fate worse than death awaits. Next, I picked up a fantasy book that I have never heard of before, and it is Dream Country by Ashay Brown. The cover caught my eye for this one. I think it's a really nice piece of artwork. This one cost me £2.45. It says, a sibling rivalry to fuel your worst nightmares. The dysfunctional triplet gods of sleep, dreams, and nightmares are kept separate by the deadly gates of horn and ivory. Only one fact keeps them tightly bound. Each of them is a suspect in their mother's murder. Their knife-edge feud worsens when a mortal enters the world with astounding abilities that threaten to change the game for them all. In this thrilling young adult fantasy, Ashay Brown brings to life a visionary world infused with Kenyan, Brazilian, Caribbean, and Grecian cultural references. A story like no other, with stakes as high as they come. I just think this sounds really interesting, and all those cultures that it just listed, I'm really intrigued. I feel like this could be good. Finally, I decided I want to try these books. I managed to find Eragon by Christopher Paolini and also Eldest, which I think are the first two books. These are YA fantasy, and I got these really nice old school paperbacks. My problem is I feel like they didn't do book 3 and 4 in these paperbacks. If they did, can you please let me know in the comments, but I have not been able to find any evidence that paperback versions that match these exist for books 3 and 4. I did at a later date manage to find a hardback edition of Inheritance. I'm not sure if this is 3 or 4, but it's got like the matching cover style for the first two. But I have a feeling I'm going to have the last two in hardback, which is sort of annoying. I would love to have matching paperbacks. I just really like the covers on them. Not sure what I paid for the paperbacks, but the hardback cost me £2.99. And that's it, guys. That is everything I managed to find over the last couple of months in charity shops. I definitely recommend having a look around your local thrift and charity shops. It's really fun, feels like you're on a little bit of a treasure hunt, and when you find something you've been looking for, it's so satisfying. Have you picked up any interesting books in the charity shops lately? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And I will see you next time.